Sounds great. All right. Thanks again for the warm introduction. Today, I'm going to be giving a presentation on AI for testing. I'm going to be talking about opportunities and challenges in the realm of QA. So a little background on me. I'm a software engineer. Previously, I worked at a bunch of startups, and most recently, I was at Nextdoor and Meta. Around last April, I left to start my own company, Classly, and we do B2B SaaS for class-based businesses. So this is like martial arts studios, pottery studios, anything that runs classes. Around last November, we were considering a pivot. So we were exploring other markets, and QA was one of these markets. We did a bunch of market research. We talked to a bunch of people. Our process was first just talking to as many people as we can. And then after getting, kind of insights from what people like or dislike about, QA and what they do at their jobs, turning that into potential solutions and validating them. So we did this by reaching out to people on LinkedIn. We honestly talked to anyone we could. We did QA managers. We reached out to a lot of directors and VPs of QA as well as a lot of Reddit. So the quality assurance Reddit is very active, and a lot of people are nice enough to just kind of talk about, their experiences. And really, they're also interested in learning about how AI is affecting QA. As we gathered all this information, we quickly just tried to create some prototypes or some vaporware to validate whether this is something that's useful to other people. We then messaged it to the people that we talked to. We got feedback from people on the subreddit, and we also tried to sell it. So just like talking to directors and VPs and pretending that we're actually selling this to see if there's signal for this being valuable. Right. So after all of that, what we landed on was that there were three major opportunities that we saw from the interviews that we conducted. The first one being that a lot of people find their test case management software very frustrating. Another is that a large amount of time of QA analysts is spent writing test plans and designing test cases. And the last one was around the end-to-end test, just being flaky and also limited sometimes by their testing framework. So this could mean anything from, not being able to change OS settings like, toggling internet connectivity or even having multiple browsers and switching between them. So for the first opportunity, test management software, test case management software. Right now, it seems like the most popular solutions are X-Ray, TestRail, and Zephyr. I added some Reddit comments of people's feedback about TestRail, but this was similar to the other ones as well. Generally, just saying that the software right now is not very user-friendly. It's slow, buggy. Sometimes they even like lose their data, which is crazy that that's still happening. For some of the other ones like X-Ray, people had feedback that it was just very heavy-handed, which means that they wanted something lightweight to put or like store all of their test cases. But in order to do that, they had to fill out a lot of fields, and that ended up being too much extra work. So just potential improvements would be, adding stability, making things fast, really designing things and making things user-friendly. And one thing that we got feedback from a lot of directors and VPs was they wanted a lot better reporting. So understanding which areas of their product were high risk and also understanding how risk progresses over time. So maybe something initially you find a lot of like bugs or errors in one part of the product, but over time it goes down. There are some new companies that are currently entering this space. The ones that we found was Testmo and Case. A lot of people had really great things to say about Testmo. And funny enough, it seems like the founder of Testmo was actually previously the founder of TestRails. I think they sold the company, were executive for a few years, left, and then now they're doing it over again. I think one of the issues that we found with this problem was that the market size is a little bit small, which means that if you're looking for venture funding or trying to raise money, it'll be a lot harder to do so. The next opportunity that we uncovered was all the time that's spent on test planning and design. So one director shared with us that QA analysts spend 30 to 50% of their time on test planning and test design. And with the advent of LLMs and AI, one thing is that we may be able to use this technology to do a lot of this work for us. So the input might be some sort of requirements, whether that's business requirements or product requirements, user stories, designs, or mocks from designers. And then the output being a draft of a test plan, some test scenarios, and also test cases. So we actually built a prototype of this. Um, Granted, it's a very basic prototype, and this is what you're seeing on the right. But you can see that, you're naming it, you're adding some context or requirements. You can add an image or some documents, and then it'll generate a bunch of test scenarios, with, the positive cases and also the negative ones, also in this BDD format. What we found through testing this and kind of giving this to different people to use was that it was actually really helpful because people were already doing this with things like ChatGPT to brainstorm test cases. It does save a lot of time, just kind of coming up with a first initial draft. I think one important point that we found was it's not great at getting everything perfect. So viewing it more as a starting point or a co-pilot, as opposed to just expecting to put all of your requirements in and the model output something that's like 100% perfect to your product. Um, some of the reason why that, it's more of a co-pilot as opposed to like giving you a very well developed final product or like polished test plan is because of some of its limitations. What we found was that AI has a very difficult time thinking through multiple steps and also considering different filters and all of their permutations. So if you were to have a very simple screen, such as a login screen, right, this might work fine. But if you have a five-step flow that is used for booking airline tickets, and it becomes a lot more difficult and it struggles to generate all the right test cases. We did take this and we presented this to a lot of directors and VPs, and they were actually really, really excited about this. But I think that the main things that they were looking for is one, they had high expectations for quality. They wanted to make sure that, whatever was all of the scenarios and test plans that were generated by this were mostly accurate, and did in fact save people a lot of times because otherwise you're just going in, you're fixing the AI. Why not just, do it all yourself at that point? And the other thing that we heard a lot was if you were building a tool like this, it would definitely need to integrate into their existing workflows. So the test case management tool or any other software that they're using, like Jira. The last opportunity that we uncovered was natural language end-to-end test. So what this really means is you're just writing English, and then from that English, it generates an end-to-end test. Um, so this space has actually evolved a lot from a year ago when ChatGPT and OpenAI really made LLMs popular, all the way to more recently. And I'm going to talk through a little bit about the evolution of what that has looked like. All right. So when LLMs were first becoming popular, the inclination was just to generate test scripts using this AI model. So you would write some prompt. So for example, you can see this GIF has login to page with username and password, and then it would generate different steps. And even though there's a UI, really, that's just code underneath of, what all of the steps are. So you have a case where you're putting in language of what you want the test to be, and it's just generating a test script for you. There are some challenges around this, mainly because the LLM, especially out of the box, it doesn't know anything about the product you're testing unless you specifically give it context. This might be resolved by training the model specifically on your product, but then again, it requires a lot of data, and it requires you to clean the data, which takes a lot of work in of itself. Also, because it's trained off of data, depending on the data it's trained on, whether that's like high quality or low quality, it might write messy or unscalable test scripts, because it's just trying to put together what it thinks is correct. The last issue that we noticed was similar to the previous test planning tool, was that it works really well for a single screen, but once you move into multiple steps, it has a lot more difficult of a time to generate code for that flow. So after some time, people started playing around with this concept called AI agents. And that's just a term that's trying to say, it's trying to like simulate what a human would do. So you can think of it as the AI or the software sees the environment. In this case, it would be whatever is the web page. From that environment, it looks at the current step that it's on, or like yeah, like one step of a test case, and tries to perform an action to achieve that step or get closer to I guess achieving that step. And then the environment changes based off of the action that the AI has taken, and then it repeats in a loop over and over again until it has completed the test case. Um, so as I just explained, it's really just looking at your web page, taking the underlying HTML because the AI model itself it doesn't have eyes, it can't really view what's on the screen like you or me. And then from that, parsing through all of those HTML elements to figure out what to interact with. So some of the challenges here is that it's non-deterministic, which is just a fancy word for saying that if you ask it to click on a green button, 9 out of 10 times it might do click on this one button, but 1 out of 10 times it might do something else. So this is very similar to if you've worked with ChatGPT. Even if you type the same question, every time you type it, it might give you a different answer. So this can be problematic when you're running tests because it might lead to flaky tests. On top of that, it might not always know how to execute these instructions that you give it in natural language. And when that happens, it might just error out or not really know what to do. And last, because it's looking at HTML elements, it still only operates within the browser. So this means that you still have the same problems of a lot of the end-to-end testing frameworks where you can't do anything, between different browser tabs, or it's difficult to do so. This is what's kind of under the hood for creating a AI agent. So I just wanted to show you that it's not really that difficult. You're taking essentially ChatGPT and you're giving it instructions to pretend to be an agent that's controlling a browser. You're telling it what its objectives are and what information you're giving it, along with the different actions that it can take. So you can see scroll up, scroll down, click, type, or submit. And then additionally, some text to say like, hey, do whatever command you think will take or get you closer to that goal. So this is some example UI of what this might look like. On the left, you have some steps like go to Google, type something to search, and then click on the button. And then on the right, you have a simulation of a browser where it actually has performed each one of these actions and it has done that. This one is more specific for QA. So you'll see that this has some settings like entering the actual username or typing some sort of password. And then in addition, doing a test here to make sure that the step succeeded and that the user was actually logged in. So around last November, I believe, OpenAI had Dev Day, and that is when these models became multimodal. So what that means is before you would interact with these AI models with mainly text, and now you can give it an image, and that model will understand and see what's in that image. So that's a huge change in paradigm because, as I was saying previously, the AI can't really see what's on the screen, but now you can take a screenshot and it can essentially see the same thing that a human sees. So this is an enhancement over the previous AI agents. And all it's doing is taking a screenshot of the current screen based on the screen, moving the keyboard or moving the mouse, the cursor to a certain position, or doing some sort of keyboard input to, achieve that test step, and then repeating over and over again until it's kind of completed the whole test case. So this is really interesting because it allows for some new capabilities. Now you can do things like easily click between browsers and do different things, or even, disconnect from Wi-Fi and test internet connectivity, because anything that a human do, theoretically, this AI can move that cursor to and do that as well. So this has a lot of challenges that the previous AI agent has as well. It's still non-deterministic. And also, it still may fail on some of the instructions that you give it. But both of these can be improved by training the model and making it better and better. And another thing that is a new challenge is that right now, um, these so the model is really good at taking an image and identifying what's inside of the image, but it's not really trained or it's not really good at moving the cursor to some position. So what people have had to do is a lot of hacks to kind of get around this. So they'll take a screenshot, and then if you say, hey, click on this button or click on this image, it'll cut the screenshot in half. And then it'll ask the model again, is the image inside of this half of the screenshot? And if it is, then it'll cut it in half again. And it'll keep doing that until it finds the correct position of where the cursor should be. As you can imagine, taking all of these screenshots and making all of these calls to a model is really expensive. So this sort of technology right now is really, really expensive. All right. So that kind of wraps up the opportunities that we uncovered. I also want to say that um, you know, kind of talk through, their limitations and some of the challenges with each of those opportunities as well. Um, if, anybody is looking to start a business, specifically in the realm of QA, now is a great time to start, mainly because all of this technology is extremely new and everybody is figuring it out like on the spot right now. To end, I'm going to play a demo video of what something like this might look like. Um, so give me a second. So this is a AI agent that is multimodal, and this is one of the companies. They're called Camel QA, and we're just going to watch how it works.
Test. Camel understands how to navigate apps. It's using the test case we wrote in plain English to decide what it needs to do in order to complete its goal of booking an Airbnb. On the right, you can see the output of our model, and on the left, you can see how it interacts with a phone. Camel QA tests apps on real devices in our device farm, executing tests just like a human would. We'll stop here to avoid a cancellation fee.
So all of that was done just by the AI model itself. And what's really interesting here is that you can look at its thought process of what it's trying to do. So it's reasoning, where is it? What is the current screen that it's on? What is the next step inside of the test case? And then how do I take an action that gets me closer to that? All right. I think that is it. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thanks so much for the amazing talk, Chase. It was really interesting, especially like dividing screen always to half. It sounds like doing like a binary search or something like that. That was
Yes.
interesting. Yeah, so maybe you can stop sharing and I'll share to show the questions. I see actually a couple of them. So I see some of them are generic questions. So just to be able to use the time efficiently, yeah, we can start with the first one, which is, it seems like everyone is trying to make a generic model for testing all products. What about training somewhat unique models from a base model for each product?
Yeah, certainly. I think this is quite useful. Obviously, with more tailored data to a particular product, you'll have better results. So I think this is really useful, but I think the difficult portion here is that you need a lot of data, and that data needs to be cleaned in a particular way. So there might be challenges with gathering that. Yeah.
All right, and maybe we can pick this one as well. Are there any hardware limitations that you can foresee with the current state of multimodal agents?
What do you mean hardware limitations, as in like access to GPUs? I think like right now there are a lot of problems with shortage of GPUs, and training models is something that is very contentious because, you know, even getting access to those GPUs is very hard. So yeah, there definitely would be hardware limitations. It's also very expensive to do so as well.
Grace, I think you are in the meeting, so you can unmute yourself and ask a follow-up question if it doesn't answer your question.
Oh, no, I think that answers my question. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Chase. It was really fantastic and insightful.
Great.
So,
Thank you so much. And yeah, if anybody's interested in talking more, feel free to contact me on LinkedIn or reach out via email. So thank you.
thank you so much.